It's surprising how little people recall this episode. I can't say that I blame them, it's not one that screams, "We're going on an adventure," but it carries a degree of calm before the storm, while letting the storm play out and feel refined and calculated. The way this episode plays out feels akin to a timely war movie for me, in that it follows a small squad traversing the waters of the enemy to extract an enemy of their enemy for a small sum while informing them that their former enemy could actually be their ally. Still following? Digging into the trenches and breaking out the same style of fashion when it comes to fighting for the likes of Saving Private Ryan and tanking their way around the city. I honestly don't believe this episode is held with much reverence when you compare it to a lot of other content from this first season. But I won't lie to you, I believe it's a sleeper episode, one that holds a great deal of importance for later down the line and gives us some incredible moments from the series. A lot of it in the heat of the action, admittedly, but contextually it supports a thread that is being explored intensely in the crew's latest season. Before I dive much further into my thoughts regarding this, let me remind you, or, if you're a first timer, tell you how this goes down. We open on the Empire's latest conquest, where they are declaring that they will remain impartial in these matters and try to find a purpose for the former separatists. As this public declaration continues, we see the esteemed senator of the former party, R.V. Singh, in discussion with his personal droid, who questions his decision on submitting to the Empire, but he feels it will allow him to retain some oversight on Raxus as a sign of loyalty to his people. However, it seems that Senator Singh has a different idea in mind at this moment and pushes his own agenda and urges the people to rise up against the Empire.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
He gets detained for speaking out against the injustice of the Empire and their takeover of a neutral world post-Clone War as a choir of voices disperse when the tanks are brought in.
Send in the clown!
Meanwhile, his droid GS-8 gets in contact with someone who can help. Back on Ord Mantell, the crew have returned from their encounter with Bane and Crosshair, and Sid informs them very quickly that they are the help.
Excuse me, what?
Once finding out that the mission is on the former Separatist base of operations, Hunter expresses his displeasure with the idea of firstly the mission, but then taking Omega on missions for now, citing the fact that bounty hunters are after her and Crosshair is aware of her. Sid says that they still owe her for the various expenses they've amounted, and they're not clear just yet. She tells Hunter that they've got to do this job, and that she'll keep an eye on Omega for now. After informing Omega and leaving her particularly bitter about the situation, Echo informs them that he's not too pleased about this either.
Well, no shit.
Drawing back on his personal disdain for the Separatists based on what happened to him towards the end of the war. While the rest of the crew feel uneasy, they are still willing to push through it. Once they arrive on world and realise the state of the planet's security, they meet with GS in the woods and sneak into the capital that is crawling with clones. Once there, Hunter uses GS to create a distraction and lure a small few away from the doors so that he can sneak in. While this happens, Sid chastises Omega for her attitude, but Omega gets her own back after informing Sid of a bad move that she's about to make in a game of Dejarik, and Sid is surprised by this revelation. Omega informs her that she loves strategy games, and Sid plays this to her advantage, while Omega plays her own game in this moment and asks that part of the profits be split off in her favour to pay Sid back for what they owe them.
Clever girl.
Back on Raxus, Hunter and Tech find the Senator, and Wrecker and Echo find them a way out. They zipline down to a nearby tank walking through the streets and acquire it for their escape. This is where one of the coolest visuals come in, from where we see a tank chase through the city. As the chase comes to a sudden stop and they become overwhelmed by swarming troops, and an impressive display from Hunter and Wrecker gets rid of them for now, Tech takes instruction from the Senator and parks the tank against a wall. That will allow them to get out of the city once they've blown through it. This succeeds, and they escape with a passing comment from Echo that seeks to affirm the Senator's decision to leave the planet for now to help his people later. Upon their return to Ord Mantell, we see what Omega's managed to achieve at this time, and as I mentioned previously, she's played multiple games of Dejarik to clear the debts that the crew owe to Sid, and has seemingly won every game against the general public. Hunter, unimpressed with this, is waved off by Sid, who has grown to like her in this time, and is pressed by Wrecker to show support. While Hunter doesn't condone the noise Omega made, given the state of things right now, he's impressed and grateful for what she did. We finish the episode with them playing a game of Dejarik, with Omega's right to return to the missions on the line if she wins. I truly adore this escapade for a variety of reasons. Firstly, it details the state of the former Separatist loyalists, and the last vestiges of their own empire as the Empire truly begins to squeeze the days of the old war out of them. Secondly, the Batchers are confronted with a face that represents their past that they spent many years fighting against, and now they have to be a party to saving them. And lastly, Omega proves to be an effective member of the squad regardless of whether she's involved in an active mission or not. And we got a solid, refined, action-packed third act. The focus on the person rather than politics, whilst stating the political shift right now, is writing at its finest. The idea of the Separatists felt almost redundant after Order 66 came about, as we saw a lot of the leaders slain by Anakin on Mustafar, and that just felt like the end. Coupled with the galaxy-wide knowledge that the droids were shut down, there wasn't a need to really delve any further for a lot of people into those involved with the Seppies beyond the war. It would seem, however, that Filoni and co disagree with this. Given how Season 2 has started, and the understanding that we've been given from Tales of the Jedi, the Seppies are steadily becoming the victims as much as the Jedi and the clones. I love this new approach, as the basis of the series is already exploring the shift in the Republic to the Empire, and they equally act as the antagonists, so what better time to explore the topic of movements and thoughts when the intent of the series is the backdrop. To suddenly realise that individuals like Singh were trying to do right by their people in the same degree that Padme was for the Republic, and that they were, and again, are suffering for their plight, reminds me of the episode with Mina Bonteri's efforts during the war to try and end it and unite both sides. In that episode, we almost had a successful venture in humanising the Seppies, until Dooku's actions dragged them back into the shadows. Mixed in with this delightful blend of complexities, part of the story is understanding the mindsets of the Batchers. I love that this drew up on the history that Echo has with the Seppies. The level of hatred that he possesses will never be quelled, but to be able to drop those barriers for a second to comfort Singh in his decision shows a progression of his character, that he's understanding they're not all the enemy and fight for a common goal now. So, can we all agree that Echo is the best?
Of course.
Then Tech looking at this objectively, but laced with an element of naivety that we see crop up again in the Season 2 premiere, assuming that all Serenians are Seppies while talking with Romar. Wrecker oblivious as usual, though he can acknowledge that they were the enemy of course. But let's be honest, Hunter going against his better judgments might have served them here as much as Omega, but even if he was coerced somewhat, proves his desperation right now and trying to protect his squad, that beyond being told by Sid to pay up, he dropped all moral objections in this instance. Then, the work done with Omega was brilliant as well. She had shared screen time in this, but certainly stole the show by the end, coming through for the crew in the way that she knows best, and plays perfectly to her character, her age, and design. She's clearly intelligent, but rarely had a chance to prove it until now, where it benefited everyone and helped to strengthen that bond with Sid and the crew. The final note is the fight itself. I can't quite pinpoint why, but I love the street fight. As I mentioned in the opening, it felt like an all-time war movie with the desperate measures and awesomely executed action set pieces. Altogether, every component fell into place with this, and I personally put it in my top 5 for Bad Batch episodes. It's certainly a sleeper one that is starting to get some traction with payoff and continuation at this point in Season 2, and it uses the best thing in my mind that makes a movie or episode as stellar a showing when it's done right, the character work. That's all I have to say on this for now. If you like what you heard, please do hit the subscribe and leave a like, and until next time everybody, take care and may the Force be with you.